Welcome back, friends, to episode 2 of Voices of the Velvet Room podcast. Of course, I'm 16-Bit Bear. We got Perplatypus with us. Perplatypus, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back with the Plat and the Bear.
All right.
Good to be here.
Today, we're talking controversy. And the biggest controversy, as you all know, is on a camera right now on my screen. And it's, what's up with your face? There seems to be a difference visually going on here.
I decided that I didn't look creepy enough to be a content creator, so I had to shave the beard. It was too masculine. Now I kind of feel like I got a double chin, and I'm just like, honestly, I'm just trying to get more into that whole Merope side. You know, we decided I'm going to be Merope, and I have to try to align myself with that a little bit more as well. And she didn't have a beard.
Absolutely. You know what? I like it. It's that summer refresh. You know, you're feeling good, probably feeling a little bit cooler. I get it.
It's dropped literally 5 degrees in every room I go into. I'm like, oh, it's so much cooler than it used to be. I love it.
And so usually when you walk in a room, people say it gets hotter. So, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
It's like now everyone's like, oh, it's so cold in here.
If I shave my beard, my wife is like, I don't know if I like you like that.
You're lucky we got a kid. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. It's too late to leave. Awesome. So, but real controversy has been abound this past week or so with the new patch. And I know I had a video on it. I know a lot of people have talked about it, but I'm curious your perspective of it. Because again, I'm coming from a background of having played the game, knowing what the patches look like, knowing what's in the content, etc. But you're not from that. So share your thoughts. What do you think about this whole, things being changed versus other versions?
I feel like people are going to get their pitchforks out because first, if you just to summarize it really quickly, is I don't care at all. Like it just doesn't matter to me at all about what the changes are. But the partially that is because I don't know what CN is bringing. Like I know like kind of what characters are coming up a little bit, but I didn't know the order. I assumed Fox was like the 6-month anniversary, and it turns out he's probably next. So point is, I don't really keep up. And so my perspective is there were no changes until I went onto the Discord or the Reddit or whatever, and I saw that I should be upset about stuff that I didn't even know it's like, I was like, oh, I suddenly was like, maybe I am entitled to these things I didn't know about, you know? So I can understand why other people are mad because especially free-to-play players that are really invested are planning their resources and their stuff like this around like, okay, well, I can get one copy of this character, then I'll get her dupe, and then I'll get her 5-star weapon from the plan, and I'll have this really good stuff. Or, I could wait 2 weeks, get a free copy of her, and then blah, 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 blah. And for me, I was just like, it's a great patch day. Look at this. There's a new mode. Cool. There's 2 new characters. They both look pretty powerful. So I just, like, I think what I said before we started was basically, it's hard to be disappointed when you don't know what's coming up, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, it was just, for me, it was a really good patch day. So there wasn't really any drama until it was brought to my attention, which is, I guess it's both good and it's bad. Like, I understand it is scummy, and I don't want to support them doing that. But also, at the end of the day, really what I care about is that the game is fun to play, and I think the game is fun to play. I feel like people get sometimes too caught up on, like, the gacha mechanics and the rates and not enough about if the game, like, people will play really, really, really bad games that have really good gacha rates and give you a lot of pulls for that reason. And I'm like, but that's like, I would rather play a good game with bad gacha mechanics, I guess. But I don't know. Is that, I'm going to start to rambling. So
No.
What did you think about it?
That makes perfect sense. And I never thought about that perspective from the, if you're just a person who downloaded this on your phone or saw it on Steam or whatever, pick your poison. If you're someone like that, yeah, it's just a new patch and it's new content. You get the train, you get some new characters to get excited about. And it's an interesting perspective because that person is both, ignorance is bliss, but then also probably the one who's taken advantage of the most because they don't know to even complain. And then on the other side, you've got the people like me who full well know what's in the future. And it's almost that curse of future foresight. Like, let's take Yui, for example. It's not necessarily the controversy, but how many people are going to skip Yui because they heard myself, as a content creator or other people say that she's good in her content cycle and then goes mid. how many people are going to miss an enjoyment factor because of this cursed future foresight, as opposed to just walking in and enjoying the day for what the day brings. So, it's kind of the same with these rewards. Like, people didn't know they were missing 200 gems in patch rewards compared to other servers until somebody that has played another version said it. So do I think it's unfortunate and, scummy to use those words as well, that they've kind of decreased these rewards? I think yes. And I think about that in the context of speeding up content as well, because now we have less influx of materials and gems for faster content. And so you'll feel it even more. But also it's a decision that doesn't make sense to me. I just don't get why they did it. But I also try not to get too caught up on it, because to your point, and I think that is the most important point, the game is still fun. I'm playing, I'm having a blast, and I've already played this content. Like, I'm having a blast the second time and I'm enjoying it even more. And I think that's the big thing that I care about is, I can't change their business practices unless I just quit the game, and then it just doesn't affect me at all. But I'd rather enjoy the game for what it is and maybe lower my expectations on what they might do in the future for like rewards or changes of that sort.
I get annoyed. I don't think that's a strong word. When on both sides of when people get extreme, like when I go into the Discord and I just hear EOS, dog crap game, it's gonna die tomorrow because of this Sega. I'm like, come on. And the same breath where I see people that are pretending like nothing has happened, like, no, this is all super justifiable. I'm like, that's also annoying. Like, this is for me with like Marion, it feels so. The reason why I think it's totally justifiable to be upset, especially if you kind of knew what was going on, is every decision they made regarding it feels so on the nose,
Yeah.
anti-consumer. It's like they're like, hey, we released this in China. When we release it in China, we got data saying that this unit is way better than we thought it was. Like, this unit is actually a pretty meta unit. If we thought it would just be like some kind of whatever healer. And so we're going to wait longer to make it semi-free. We're also going to make sure you don't get that really powerful dupe. We're also going to make you have to pull for her weapon. So it's like they saw the power level of the unit with hindsight of the CN version, and then they used that to better monetize her in our version of the game, which is pure scummy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's purely worse in every decision. So that it does annoy me that they did that. My only perspective was I didn't know about this until this stuff started coming up. And I should there's quite a few dramas that came out in this last week, like sped up content. That's one I personally don't care about as a spender. I enjoy having more content faster. I understand that it's bad for other reasons, but so that's kind of the stuff I don't care about as much. But then with that, there's other stuff that does annoy me a bit more, I will admit. But there are a lot of people that just download the game. The average person, they're not on Discord. They saw Persona, on the phone. They download it. They're having a great time.
Yeah.
They don't know anything, and they're still having a really good time. So, there's two sides of that coin.
Yeah, and you said two things in there that prompted some thoughts in my head. So one is you talked about how they, learned from the characters released on who was popular. They take votes and stuff on popularity on characters as well. And it's almost like the reverse of our future foresight. Like, we know to skip certain characters or to not invest heavily in certain characters if you care about the meta. And it's almost like they're flipping the meta on us. Like, well, we know you will care about this character, so how can we shift up, the paradigm to make more money? Because the Miriam play, I think a lot more people will pull on her because they have to wait longer. I pulled her, but I pulled her because it was just a fun thing to do with chat. Otherwise, I would have continued to wait on her. But I bet there's a lot of people that sat back and said, you know what? I heard Yui's not great. I heard Minami's the best healer in the game. I'm going to go spend on Minami. I'm going to get her now while it's guaranteed. I don't want to wait the extra, and we say extra time, but she's actually come out early, which is a kind of a little bit of an irony, as it's kind of a double-edged sword. We're getting her earlier than we did in the other servers, but then we're not getting her right away right after. And my bet is that she'll still come out when Fox comes out, which is when it happened before, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's a weird situation. So there was that. And then the other thing you mentioned was the sped up content, and the sped up content would impact a spender less. And I agree with that because I've got my screen up in between us here. If I go in the shop, for example, I bought one of these training set packs that you use your gems on because I wanted to level closer to be level 60 to pair with my Yui, and I ran out of stuff. And so, those that are looking at my screen, you can see I got one of those in one of the weapon sets, and that was specifically for her. But I do spend some money. It's, so I'm not free to play. But a free to play person on sped up content, if they don't adjust the material economy, if they don't adjust the gem economy, and they just keep launching these banners and then making the banners run longer. Yeah, you could say, well, the banner's here longer, but you're also overlapping potentially 3 or 4 banners at that point, depending on how fast they do this. And so I think your free to plays are going to have their patience checked a little bit, in that, they're kind of stuck with this. I want this character, but now I can't level them. And it doesn't feel as bad going to say level 40 or 50. But when you start, and you've probably noticed this, when you start pushing to 60, it's hard. And then if you're pushing to 70 and 80, the resource gap to 80 is huge. And so you'll be farming those Realm of Repression stages every single day just to get one character broken through every couple of days. So you stack too many characters too quickly without adjusting the economy, and I think your free to play players in particular are going to feel it the worst.
Well, and I think that's why if you go into the achievements, for example, like it says raise, like to get the ultimate whatever achievement for enhancing, it's raise any one Phantom Thief to level 80. It's not like raise 10 to level 80.
Yeah.
Like they know, they're like, all right, that's going to take quite a long time to do. So yeah, the game doesn't even necessarily incentivize you in the short term to try to get everyone to 80. I think they kind of want 70s, and then 80 is like a more of a long-term, goal.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes down to the, how fast are you rushing multiple teams? And I think we're all realizing at this stage, if you've been playing since day one, obviously if you just came in today, you don't feel this, but you really want to invest into your support units that can go on multiple teams, because you can take Minami and put her on any team that needs a healer. You can take Leo and put him in so many different teams. You can take Rin even as a debuffer. It doesn't have to be with Joker. But then you're going to have a DPS that's specific to, a boss fight or a Velvet Trial stage. And so I think the core of the early game is you build your units, your 1 or 2 DPS units, and really heavily invest in them first. And then you bring your supports that can go into multiple teams. And then you can save a bit of resources because you're sharing across teams, until, of course, you need 2 teams. And then you have to kind of bring up a sub team.
And can I say, like, it was so much easier, not in terms of actual reality, but in mentality, to bring Minami, Marion, up to level 70 than it was to bring Bui, B-U-I, Yui, whatever people decide they want to call her. Like, bringing her, I'm like, she is so unbelievably narrow. She's good in exactly her niche, but, like, if you don't want single target electric damage, like, so it's like, so she has very, very few teams she goes in, where Marion just goes it doesn't matter if you have 1 or 2 units, just throw in Marion, you're like, all right, that's fine. I think Rin is actually kind of the same, but Rin doesn't help with survivability, so it could be a little rougher, but nothing she does is curse related. But I really quickly wanted to say one thing. I feel like, so people will say with like Marion, it's like scummy that she, whatever, that she's not in the thing, and that they kind of made her wait longer for her, kind of. Also, I feel like some people will see Yui like, oh, but they buffed Yui. That's kind of a good thing, right? It's controversial. I think buffing Yui is scummy equal to the level, because it's another decision that we could see is made to make people spend more money. People that wanted to skip this unit, now they're like, well, now there's a buff. Now everyone, because all these guides that we put out, people are like, well, now with the buff, now should we spend? Well, I wasn't gonna spend. Now there's a buff. So even though it is kind of cool, and as someone that has the unit, that they buffed her a little bit, I actually do think it is still a consumer necessarily unfriendly. It's not like the unit's been out for 3 months and a lot of people have her and they decided to buff her when she's underperforming. It's when you have, now that you have the chance to buy her. So they made decisions to make us spend more, hopefully, on Marion, and they made decisions to try to make us spend more on Yui Bui here. So I just wanted to highlight that. Just because it's a buff, I don't think it makes it a positive thing.
Yeah, and I didn't think about that either, but it does seem like the core of their decisions right now feel in line with how do we take or make more money from, this new global audience that we have, be it JP, the US, Europe, or whatever you want to say. And I don't see a lot of counterbalance going the other way. And I think that's where people get upset. Like, well, why don't we have codes? Why don't we have, these patch rewards that we get in the other servers? Or even I talk about all the time in the streams, just that initial hype. Like, they could have gone out to like Legion Gaming's, who they had as their content creator, or any of those other content creators they gave early access to, and said, hey, here's a code to give your audience. I think about Ethereum Restart. They had like 40 codes. It was, you don't have to go that far, but it was insane. And every content creator got one.
They gave me 20 unique codes. Everyone could only use it one time.
Yeah.
So it was for one account or whatever you give away, but still, like, they're giving out like hundreds of codes since
Yeah.
launch for this, that, and the other thing, you know?
Yeah. And those are like, I mean, basically non-cost to them. You could argue, but somebody might have bought 100 more gems somewhere else. But when you think about the goodwill that drives in the community, you know, people get excited. They feel welcome. They feel like they've been given something for taking time. And I get it, it's a free-to-play game. And, you know, somebody brought this up on one of my comments, and they're not wrong, is I think some of the complaints when you're considering the fact of how much you're getting for absolutely free are maybe a little bit too far in the pendulum swing to the doom and gloom end of service life or whatever. But, you know, 100 gems is not going to break the game economy, or 200 gems or something like that. So I do think they could do more there. And I think the other big thing is really just the communication aspect. They're making these decisions, and they say in their announcement, like, hey, we know people were saving their standard pulls for Minami, and now we're going to change when she comes out. And they never went that one step further to say, and here's why. And I think that was my biggest issue is if they want to change it, it's their game. There's not much I can say about that, whether I like it or not, but just complete your sentence. Give us the other part of that information.
I mean, it's as simple as it's odd. No one likes to be treated unfairly. We can all see people that are plugged in to the community and stuff. We can all see that they're taking the data they got from the Chinese version of the game and they're min-maxing us to try to get more revenue out of us. And it's like, so everyone can see that and they're feeling like they're being treated unfair because we're being treated literally, even if you could argue the game is super fair. I think it's kind of greedy as far as gachas go, but it's very free to play friendly. It's got an incredibly fun story, a lot of content, and you could argue all that. It doesn't really matter when you're just being treated objectively worse than the other audience that had the game.
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
see that and they just get upset by it because no one wants to be treated unfairly. So I think it is totally justified. And I think you can acknowledge that without being doom and gloom, EOS, terrible game kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like there's just a balance. People get hurt and then they go too far, and then people see people going too far and then they defend too far the other ways. Like you can criticize without hating, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You could point out things that are wrong.
Well, and you don't have to be all on one side or the other. Like you can like some things and hate other things. And I think that's to your point as well. It's, yeah, I'm definitely a more, I don't know, even, I think, emotional kind of person. But even me, like there are parts of this I really do dislike. But then I don't let that derail the fact that I'm having fun. I don't let that derail the fact that, yeah, maybe I wasn't originally pulling Yui, but now I am, and I'm having a blast with her, right? Like I don't have to let the decisions of you know, the mega corporation, if you want to call it that, impact the fact that I can still enjoy certain things. But I can also still criticize and dislike parts of it, right? So it doesn't have to be all in on one side, all in on the other side. I hope people realize that. Like you can still have some fun and still also be critical and dislike certain things that are occurring.
Yeah, 100%. I lean very, very much on like the almost toxic positivity side. Like if I had to lean one direction, just because I'm like, listen, I'm having fun. I'm willing to look past a lot of stuff if I'm not having fun. But at the same time, I could see the problems. And I've had this with a lot of other gotchas where I've had friends that are like, they're all in on like, this is not the doom and gloom, but they really like pointing out the issues and people get mad at them. I'm like, listen, they're just saying what needs to be said. Just because I'm not always talking about that stuff because I care more about actual gameplay mechanics doesn't mean that that's not a relevant part of the conversation as well.
Yeah. You know, and one other thing I want to talk about, separate from that particular conversation, and I guess this is more of a PSA. I want to show, because I've got my screen up. I talked a bit about the new packs that came with Yui. And when I looked at them and I looked at the prices, I'm like, oh, these are good. This is like $1 per pull, or, you know, whatever the relative value was. And I got quite a few comments from people saying, wait, my prices are more. And so if we take away the whole, you know, other countries, because I'm not trying to get down the rabbit hole of 1,000 different conversions. But if we look at just, for example, US market, I popped on my iPhone and it's absolutely more expensive on my iPhone. And then, I was even joking with Perplatypus earlier, like I probably could have saved like $10 by now if I was buying exclusively on Google, and had I known this from the start. And from what you're telling me, Steam is also more expensive. So I guess as a kind of PSA, if you have access to a computer, a laptop, even if you don't plan on playing the game on that platform, I would download the Google beta client that comes on their website if you plan on spending money. Just use it for their shop. Save yourself a few dollars. I think somebody told me they put this even in a notice in the game that's like you get 15% less cost in Google, and I totally overlooked that if it was there. But just as a PSA, save yourself, you know, a few dollars if you're going to be a spender.
Interesting. So I didn't even think about that. So not only is Steam more expensive, but Apple is more expensive than Google as well, is what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, the big Apple overlord who
Because
charges twelve
I've
thousand
never
dollars for
used
a
an I've
phone.
never had an Apple product, so I just don't even I wasn't thinking about that. Okay. Well, while we talk about the next topic or whatever, I'll
Hmm.
pull it up on my phone and we can compare like what your expense if you have the
Yeah,
expensive version up. I could take a look what the cheap version is of
yeah,
something, but
I can pull up the
it'll
iPhone
take a
too.
minute. It'll
Sure,
take a
sure.
minute for me to pull that up. So we could talk about something else while we get there if you
Yeah.
want.
Well, let's spin off of the controversies for a bit, and I want to talk about you pulled Yui, you pulled Minami. I've always had
Hmm.
Minami on the other accounts, and I've got Yui for the first time. So would love like kind of first impressions. What are your thoughts about these two brand new characters of the game?
Yeah. Minami is are maybe my favorite character in the game.
Mm,
She's not quite as fun as Soy in
okay.
a lot of ways. She's not quite as fun as like Sumi. Like these are just characters I think are really fun to use. Um, but she is just like so good. She's exactly my style of character too. Like if you looked at all my first view, like my
Hmm.
first builds, it's like, all right, I'm using Soy, I'm using Key, and I'm using an HP like Wonder to try to I love big tanky teams
Yeah.
that like when an enemy comes out, they do their big attack, my health bar goes like you know, it's like I can't even. It's like good. Throw ultimate attacks at me all day, loser. That's not even hurting.
Yeah.
And she slots so well into that. So one thing I didn't really think about when I first read her kit,
Uh huh.
um, and when I was hearing about her, was that she's obviously a great healer. Yeah, she's a good
Yeah.
healer with a
Yeah.
little bit of damage and a very small amount of buffs. But she just increases the survivability even on turn zero, where with that 10%, everyone basically
Hmm.
gets 1500 HP, right? If you think about every time you look at a character with like 1500 HP, they would be dead if she wasn't on the team. You're like, oh, dang, like she's keeping people alive preemptively a lot.
Yeah.
And she has three different skills that increases the max HP. So she is absurdly good at pushing higher level content in the Velvet Trials where your
Mm,
team would normally get one shot. And now, like, if people with like Leon always dies a one shot, not with her on the team, because now suddenly he has like effectively like 50% more HP between all of her ways of increasing HP. So she's been like the goat of pushing higher level content in the Velvet Trials. I'm up to over 200 stars now in it.
nice.
And
Nice.
she's just been absolutely phenomenal. And she's busted in the new mode.
Oh
The
yeah.
new mode with the whatever the
The
train
train.
I forget
Yeah.
what it's called. Actually absurd in that mode. And
Yeah.
Yui's fine, you know.
I so I
Yui's fine.
I love Minami. I really want to get her A1, but I'm not gonna go pulling for her A1. It'll come eventually. And the fact that you get Pierce on it is so powerful. It's one of your best stats. And yeah, she's got all these extra little buffs. And there is every part of me that's having to reserve myself from pulling for her weapon. Because like right now, and I've got her up on my screen, her 4-star increased healing by percentage, increased continuing healing, so like you heal over times by, about 30% on my current. And then after using a healing skill, you have a chance to do blessing. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that in particular. But if I look at her weapon, I'm gonna pull it up over here.
So which weapon are you about to talk about? Her
Her
5-star?
Yeah, her 5-star.
Okay. I have a hot take after this, but go
Oh,
ahead.
okay, yeah, yeah. So increase max HP by 30%, and when she has diagnosis, increase healing effect by 10%. She has diagnosis a lot of the time. And then when spending diagnosis, increase party's damage by 25%. And this really goes well with her first passive. And so having that weapon and having her A1 turns her from a 90% I'm here to heal to a I don't know, 70, 60% I'm here to heal, and I'm now buffing all of your damage. It's almost like we talk about sub DPS. It's almost like having a sub buffer in your team.
Yeah, it's because it's a big opportunity cost to run a dedicated healer, which
Hmm.
is why even Lufel, who I think is not quite a fully dedicated healer, but like it could be a high opportunity cost if every turn you're just using a heal. The
Yeah.
fact that she could use her keep everyone alive and also then buff them makes it so it's much lower of an opportunity cost. But let's still like I like keeping it in like perspective here.
Hmm.
Like you're not ever pulling her to be that. It makes the overall team stronger. Like if you look at Rin, if you have Rin A1 or whatever,
Yeah.
you're doing enemies are taking like 90% bonus damage for like the first two turns of combat. First two turns of combat. It's not even like close in terms of like
Yeah.
how much more damage a dedicated character of that will bring, but it does add a lot of her to like the opportunity cost of bringing her. You're not losing as nearly as much damage when you have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I don't know. I've always just enjoyed having her on my teams, and she makes things so safe. Her
She
big
makes things
heal,
so safe. I love safe
yeah,
teams. I love safe teams. Which is why I don't like using Ryuji, even though I think he's a really cool
he's so
character.
fun.
I don't like being like, oh, he's just dead. Okay, it's just like
He
ah,
he can
Ryuji.
slaughter the new boss, the Palace 2 boss. I've been talking to a
Mhm.
few people that have been using him. He's such a good play in that particular fight. But yeah, and I think too, people don't realize how much of a power gap there is between where most people are right now, maybe in that kind of level 60 character range. Not Wonder, but like the units that they pull for.
Yeah.
And what it feels like at 80 with a card set. Maybe you've pulled a couple dupes. Like it's a more gradual curve because you don't feel it as you're kind of going through the leveling. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, my heals on Minami are going from topping me off to being like thousands over, and I can go from almost completely dead to full on a single button. And she does that. That's why she's such a damn good healer. And then she starts adding her buffs on top of that.
I swear I built her, but I feel like I didn't build her insane. Like obviously good. Like I got her weapon, I got her
Mm-hmm.
A0, and then I put some like normal cards on her, and then I leveled her up to 70, which is all like good and stuff, right? That's investment. But then I looked and she was like 15,000 HP. I was like, what the hell? Where did she get 15? My soy only has 9,000 HP. How did that
Uh huh.
happen?
Uh huh.
Um, and then she gets an additional 10% when combat starts from her own
Mm-hmm.
passive. And then she gets another 15% per nectar or whatever it's called, diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. But what I want, my really quick, my hot take
Oh
is
yeah.
I think, and I haven't mapped it out, but based off my reading comprehension, I think her 4-star weapon is worse than her 2-star weapon, which just gives flat HP buff. I think her 4-star weapon is
Mm-hmm.
the worst of all of her weapons, and I would not use it myself until it is proven to me by someone way smarter at math that it is actually functionally as good. She already overheals so much. I don't value the 30% healing over time. The one blessing stack pretty much always sucks. One blessing stack on one target is not good. It is not relevant. And then the overall healing, I think she is getting less than just having more flat HP, which increases everyone's max HP as well. So I use her. I have her 5-star weapon, but if
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't, I would use her 2-star.
God, I want her 5-star weapon. You know what? I've never done the math on the low because I always just kind of use the lower level weapons as XP fodder, so I don't
Yeah.
really pay much attention to their stats anymore. But yeah, no, that's an interesting. I'd actually have to go sit down and do the math on that one. I'm curious what that would
Yep.
be. So
Only her 2-star weapon and her 5-star weapon give her flat, like give her percent based HP. The
hmm,
3 and the 4 don't give her HP. And the 4, I think, is just I think it's actually just straight up not that good of a weapon. But maybe
okay,
again, that might be a hot take, but it's one of my least favorite 4-star weapons I've seen so far.
okay. I was just hopefully people don't try to use mine as a build guy because I literally just had my cards up and I'm running the lover set, which is a healing set, but that's actually not her
Yeah.
best set. I just don't have other cards, and I'm like, well, at least this will give me some more healing. Not that she needs much more healing, but whatever. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about Yui for our last few minutes here. I'll say I'm pleasantly surprised with her. I like counter type units. I like follow up type units. I love giant tanks and things like that. And so she's fitting that follow up niche for me. She's got a fun design. I like this kind of spunky, electric. It reminds me of like late 90s, early 2000s going to raves. Because,
Yeah.
I used to do that. And, she's been fun. And her highlight buff, I know you touched on that a little bit ago. By the way, for those that play other servers, it was in the preview for the next patch for China. So she will be getting that highlight buff here very shortly on the other servers. But that's huge. Not huge enough
Mhm.
to make her like the top DPS, like, and you're going to keep her. And the fact of the matter is, Makoto's still going to come out after Fox as long as they don't change the schedule, and she just destroys single target damage. So, and that's when we say like she doesn't last long. You're going to get Makoto, and then she's going to be like the true nuke. I mean, she's nuke damage, but insane single target DPS. And so where Yui's a lot of fun right now, I do think most people that have her may transition unless they just like using her into Makoto. But all the same, like when I went into second boss, it was my first real fight with her. And granted, I was level 60, which is a bit over leveled for that fight. But the fact that she would one-shot phases, I just started laughing. Like on my camera, I'm just laughing. I was gonna do a tutorial on the phase 6, and she literally just walked in and was like, "There is no phase 6." See you later.
Yeah. She I think people crapped on her too hard. I mean,
Hmm.
she obviously does great damage, super good damage. Um, I mean, I just don't think you get. She's probably better than Ryuji for damage on a single target. She's probably
Right
better
now
than
she is, yeah.
Joker for damage on a
Hmm.
single target. Like she's
Yeah.
probably just straight up the best in the game for single target damage.
Yeah.
Um, like obviously currently, but I I don't like her. For a couple reasons. One, I don't like her social link that much, but
Mm.
besides that, I don't like the way her turns feel.
Oh,
I
okay.
always feel like I have to play, and again, this is not. It's kind of like how I don't like Leon, but Leon's like really good. Like I
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
like the way he plays. For her, it's kind of like I always feel bad if I have to do what feels like a suboptimal turn. And with her, it feels like I'm always doing suboptimal turns. You use the highlight, use the player two thing.
Mm.
And so if I ever need to use an action to heal, or I ever want to use an action to just buff or debuff, I'm like, well, there goes a follow-up attack with her
Yeah.
highlight. So I feel bad if I do anything besides attacking when she's on the team.
Yeah.
And so I'm never like I don't like her using her that much, but I mean, she does like I used her in the guild boss fight, and it's like,
Oh,
oh
I
my
destroyed
god. I
that
mean,
guild boss.
she's just. I mean, I got millions and millions, top
Yeah.
1%, no problem, and I was like, she's absurd right now. If you're fighting one thing, or I would say two things, three things, she starts to fall off. But even at two things, like you can nuke one thing down, nuke another thing down. She is very very
Yeah.
good, even
I
if I don't find her that fun.
I went to the guild boss last night and I went suboptimal. I was not speed tuned. I don't even know if I had fully leveled her cards that I have. And her cards that I have are crap right now. They're not even good cards. It's the right set, but terrible cards. And I still got top 3% on guild boss.
Hmm.
And here's the thing is in another, how long do we have left on this cycle? 4 days, 3 more days from now. I would not be surprised if I could pull another million on that. Like,
Yeah, I I might be able to. I didn't even have cards on her. I did, but
yeah,
like I didn't have, and none of them were like leveled or anything, right? And so I just had her at level 70, which is a big boost. But
yeah.
yeah, there is so much power
I
that
think
she has, especially for that fight.
I think something I need to talk about because I'm going to do her guide either tomorrow or Monday, and she's the kind of character that if you don't know how to like maximize into her, she might feel really bad. And it's for exactly what you said. Like if you're not getting her follow-ups, that is her damage. The point of her damage isn't necessarily her on turn damage. It's how many times can she do damage off of her turn. And
Hmm.
she is super reliant on crit. And so like right now, again, not fully optimized because I don't have yellow cards and things like that. I already have her at almost 40% crit rate just walking into a battle. Then I literally had to re-speed tune this morning because she was still too fast, and I had to go pull the second level agility onto one of Wonder's whatchamacallit personas. And so
Hmm.
like when I look at this, I'm running what's his name? I always forget his name, but I love him. Kumo Kutin with Revolution, which is going to give me another 6% crits plus a little bit more, based on my own crit rate, and Rebellion. And so my turn 1-2 is strictly to get more crit on her. Then I'm switching over to a fully buffed Yerlinger, who also has
Hmm.
Raccoonda, so I can put a defense down, so I don't have to switch off of him for a turn. And all that is just to get her ready for like her big damage moments. And like when I'm going to pull my team up here on the screen, but I'm running her with closer, which also means now you have to build closer. And my closer
Hmm.
is one dupe away from being maxed because of all my pulls the other day. And she's like, I've got to get Yui to where she's third in the order, not fourth, because I want her to kick off her party thing before Matoha goes off, before closer goes off. So like that's the level of thought it took for me to get this team to where I feel like it's efficient enough to be not perfect, but really well made. You take somebody else who has Yui going last without a good closer and without, the kind of investments into crit into Yui, and they're not going to feel as fun as what I'm doing. And I think that's the crux of Yui is I think she requires that level of thought to get the best out of her.
100. I mean, it's the antithesis, which I'm using that word too much today, of Marion, right? Where
Yeah.
Marion's like, I don't know, you get some F and HP on her, throw her in a team, everyone's at full health
Press
forever.
heal.
It's like you need to min max Yui way more than I feel like you need to min
Yeah.
max most characters, because especially like crit characters in general, I feel like If you have a character that relies on crit, and you're not focusing on crit, you're going straight attack buffs, like you're gonna really, really fall short.
Yes.
I feel like it's kind of important to keep in mind as a really, really quick side tangent is that different elemental teams specialize in different things,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like worth noting. Electricity in general, up to this point, is kind of more crit focused, just in general.
Well, shock plays
Because
right into that.
electricity, yeah, shock plays into that. You increase the crit chance. Fire teams are more AoE focused, just inherently. They're all the units, whether or not it's obvious or not. Like Anne is
Hmm.
better when there's a bunch of enemies. Fire debuffs on a bunch of targets. You know, they're not doing 20% fire debuff per turn. They're doing 5%. So hitting a bunch of targets with that
Yeah.
will do a lot of. So like fire is inherently good, and ice is kind of just, I don't know, defensive. I don't know what ice is supposed to do, but so
Ice
yeah,
reduces enemy attack when you put them on freeze.
yeah, that's what freeze does. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be enough ice units to really like have a strong identity of what that team looks like yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess it's defense scaling maybe when Fox comes out, right?
Yeah, Fox will fit
Something
his
like
niche
that.
with that. Yeah, and this is where the whole are you single target AOE, like what is your character specialty comes in mind, and yeah, you do have to play into those identities. And I think for a lot of average players, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't think it's wrong to be average, and I don't even mean that like you're not good at the game. I mean that as like the person who just wants to come in, press a button, and have fun. Like to me,
A
that's
chump,
a chump. Yeah, you
a
noobs,
chump.
you
Yeah.
noobs. For that person, Makoto's gonna be way better because here's Makoto's rotation. Skill 3. She's literally another Ryuji. And if you have her with Vino, all you have to do is keep using Vino's buttons. It feels super good. It's satisfying. She'll keep the elemental ailments on for you. And then your whole reason to bring Queen is to hit skill 3. And then she just goes into like a powered up state. I think it's called Iron Will. And she just decimates. And then when she decimates, it's a different animation. Kind of like An has the extra animation for like the meteor falling. And it feels like incredible when you do it. And you don't have to like min max the hell out of your party order and your team to the same extent that I see that I need to do for Yui to get that effect. You can literally just press skill 3 and you're just demolishing content. It's like a win button.
Yeah. I mean, I do like back to you. It's like you have to put a lot of effort into her, but
Mhm.
like if you see an enemy that there's like one or two characters and they're weak to lightning, I mean, I think it's going to be quite a while before we get anything better in that fight than her.
Oh yeah.
She's niche, but like if they have the electrical weakness, she does absolutely wreck stuff. So I don't want people that pull because some people will
Oh
pull
yeah.
her, and I don't want people to think, oh, you pulled her, man, you know, bricked account, you didn't shouldn't have got her. But also, I don't want people to feel incentivized to pull her because she's niche, but she is powerful.
Yeah,
Um,
I think my overall should you pull, assessment is still the same. It hasn't changed even with her buff. I think for most people, if you're pushing score in like the guild content SOS, you have to pull the new unit. The fight is literally
yep.
built for the new unit. That's how Gacha works. You take that person out of this equation. I think for most people, she's not worth pulling. She's fun, but you have to go into it with, I think the mentality that I did is, how am I going to maximize and invest in specific personas and build the shit out of them? How am I going to wrap my speed around this? How am I going to make sure that my buff cycles line up to when she's doing the most amount of follow-ups? And if you don't want to go through that level of effort, Yui's going to feel good, but not great. And then you're going to have a better unit and a couple of banners anyways. So I don't think people should pull on her for anything other than a love of the character, or you are just trying to push the top scorers in leaderboards.
This is what quickly back to Marion. One thing that is kind of awkward to talk about because people ask, should I pull Marion? Should I pull Marion? And the only reason people say, in my opinion, no, is because she's coming to the
Yeah,
gold ticket banner eventually. If she was never coming to the gold ticket banner, everyone would be like, you should pull this unit. She's freaking
100%.
crazy.
100%.
But because she is coming to that, so like again, I don't want people that do pull her to be like, oh man, people say I shouldn't pull her. It's like no, everyone thinks you should pull her. They think you should just pull her on the cheap on the
Yeah.
back end. But I'm always a little cautious when I say that because it's like just because they're on the general banner doesn't mean you're ever gonna get them. Like
Yes.
necessarily. Like you're still rolling the dice in a 1 in 6 that gets continuously worse over time.
Yeah. Well, and that's
Um,
that's what I was gonna say too. Is their odds only get worse.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do like the crazy statistics about if I pull so many tickets per week over the course of 2 years, fine. But nobody's really waiting for that. that
Yeah, the
that luck
game
to
isn't
pan
even two
out.
years old.
Yeah,
Who cares if you get the unit? And people will be like, "Yeah, what do you mean? I can get every unit in the current pool within 2 years.
yeah.
It's free to." I'm like, "Yeah, but who cares? There's gonna be twice as many units every 2 weeks. There's a new unit coming out, man.
I pulled.
There's 28 new units a year."
Oh yeah, I pulled on KR up until so the last character I pulled was. Let's see, I got the new Makoto from Persona 3. I got Anj. I did a few pulls after. I forget for who. Maybe Akihiko or Yukari. I didn't get them because I ran out of tickets. But if you think about when Howler comes out to then, it's months. I've never gotten Howler. She's never now she I believe is a 5-star, but like you when you look at the standard banner and characters move over, I was still pulling dupes of other people. So when we start getting more characters, it does absolutely become harder to get them. Now, I do still think you have a fairly decent shot right now. And like I said, I would have waited had it not been for just the fun of the stream. And obviously we did the poll and that was absolutely fine. I don't regret doing that at all. But if this was two limited characters coming out side by side or next to each other, like even a couple weeks apart, my assessment would have been pull Minami and not Yui if they were both limited,
Yeah.
right? It comes down to the pull economy in this game is not amazing. Some people like to defend it and they look at some future patches and stuff, but I still think if you're fully free to play, it's not amazing pull economy, especially if you want weapons on top of it. And then B, so far, and maybe they will change this, and I hope to God they change this, but so far they've only been less generous for us.
Yeah, I mean, like I have not been shy about saying I think it's people are like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're conflicted in your own brain because I'll be like, this game is very free to play friendly, and it's also one of the greediest gachas I've ever played in my life.
It's the best
People
way to
for some
describe
reason
it.
people think that these are mutually exclusive
Mm-mm.
for some reason. Where it's like, no, it's like, do you understand? It's like the game, you could clear all the content, all the story content, 100% free to play. And in fact, if you're too weak to beat the story content, they'll even make it easier for you. They'll even
Yeah.
say, all right, you didn't beat that. You want us to make it easier? It's very free to play friendly and they give you a really good experience. But when I spend $1, I don't get a lot for that dollar.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot for your money, even though it's free to play friendly. So they're not at all mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I think that is the best topic for us to tee up for next week because I think there's a lot we can dive into there, especially, using a little bit of my future foresight on what will come and like what becomes what I think is an even more free to play friendly game while still being, to your point, incredibly greedy. So I think we cap it there.
I can't wait to get into the pity, the 110 versus
Oh my God,
160, 50. Here's the thing. Right now, I'm on the current pity system. I like it more than the 110. And I think that's not a lot of people agree with that. But
we're going to have to cover that next week too. That's going to be,
we'll cover that next
I
week.
guarantee anyone who got to this point in this podcast, there's going to be so many of them that are already writing comments about that. You just opened the can. So friends, next Sunday, we're going to talk about the free to play while still being greedy. I love that topic because I think it is something that can only be core to gacha games. And what you just said there, the 110 versus the 50-50 and why you might like one versus the other. Guys, I'm not going to bust out the statistics on the numbers there. I don't want to put everybody to sleep, but we'll talk about all of that.
I'm telling you, I'm going to use ChatGPT to help to get some basic like bottom line stuff. Not every situation, but a bottom of the line. Here's what you're getting. I think it may not be as good as people. I think it's not as beneficial as people might think.
Well, we'll talk about next week because there's some elements I want to toss into there. So friends, great episode 2. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the reception on episode 1. We had, when I last checked, over 2,000 views on a podcast, which is fantastic. And it's probably growing. I just haven't checked it. And so I would love to see if we can top the 2,000 views on episode 2. It would be crazy to me. And with that, as always, my friends, I hope you take care of yourself and I'll see you on our next stream or our next video. For Platypus?
Yeah, make sure you're checking out Bear's streams. He's pushing out big numbers. I think he peaked at over 420, which is a very funny number. 450 on his last stream. Absolutely freaking killing it. So, anyway, next week we'll be back. Thank you for the support. Much love. Per Platypus is per Ploutopus. See you in the next one.
Later, guys.